Let's get right to our panel now. MSNBC contributor and Washington Post editorial writer Jonathan Capehart joins us right here in the studio. And from the nation's capital, we're delighted to have with us MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolff. John, it appears that there's some confusion about the planned Dine with the Donald and Romney event. We understand that Romney has now postponed that in preference for an event that's due to take place at the Pierre Penthouse in the Pierre Hotel. I mean, does Romney feel that on the day such an august decision on healthcare reform comes down, he'd rather not be with a clown like the Donald?
Well, when you put it like that, probably not. But look, I think the venue at the Pierre Hotel, that penthouse, which, you know, for full disclosure, I've been to on a couple of occasions, is quite spectacular.
So a company that you mix with, and we expect nothing less.
Well, because I'm here to report.
Indeed.
And so, you know, it's a spectacular venue. I'm sure the owner is wildly wealthy, would have to be, and is a Romney supporter. Why Donald Trump would say, yes, he would do a Dine with the Donald event and then not go through with it. It could be that the Romney campaign doesn't want to be seen with him. It could be that they thought better of it, which would be great. And maybe this portends, you know, maybe the disappearance of the Donald from Mitt Romney's retinue.
You think so? That's interesting. Richard, we've just learned that the president is actually heading to Colorado on Friday to tour fire-ravaged areas there and obviously thank firefighters who are doing a tremendous job. And our hearts go out to all of them. Yep. But it feels like a smart political move as well, doesn't it, Richard? Following the Supreme Court decision and what many people, I guess 60% of polling suggests, and the in-trade betting people suggest, is going to be negative for the president on the individual mandate.
Yeah, look, I cannot take the in-trade people seriously. There are so few people who trade in that stuff. It's pretty meaningless. But, you know, these fires are anything but meaningless. They're devastating. They've been going on for a long time. And there are advantages to being an incumbent, to being president. You can project presidential power and authority. And there's a role for a president in times of natural disaster. We saw what happens when a president doesn't fulfill that. That was President Bush after Hurricane Katrina. And you can, even if you cannot do much about the natural disaster itself, there's a reassuring element, an element of command and control that a president can bring to this kind of situation that will make the news. And by the way, of course, it's a battleground state.
Indeed. And to that point, John, Colorado is one of the states where Romney appears to be struggling. After 3 months of improving numbers, his negative rating is back up to its all-time high of 39%. Now, I have to put this to you. Is this a case that with Romney, the more the electorate gets to know him, the less they appear to like him?
Sure, and we have seen this before. Yes, his poll numbers were improving over the previous few months, but we saw that during the primary season, that the more people got to know Mitt Romney, the less they liked him. Now that he's got the field to himself, it's just he and the president going up against each other. Plus, you have the Bain attacks and the negative ads from the Obama campaign against Mitt Romney and his experience at Bain. They appear to be working and sort of reminding people who might have been squishy in terms of their viewpoint on Mitt Romney that, you know, there may be a reason why I don't like this guy.
Sure. Richard, Mr. Romney's fellow Republicans are sharpening their line of attack on the president over his immigration move, although I wonder if it's a particularly wise one. Take a listen to this, Richard.
If the president insists on continuing to ignore parts of the law that he doesn't like and simply not enforce that law, the primary remedy for that is political. Now, if it's bad enough and if there are shenanigans involved in it, then of course impeachment is always a possibility, but I don't think at this point anybody's talking about that.
That was Arizona Senator John Kyle. Right. Richard, but you have to forgive me for a moment. I'm still learning things about the American system of government. To impeach someone, don't you actually need grounds for doing so?
Right. Well, for a start, as an older immigrant speaking to a newer immigrant, let me explain a couple of things. There was this impeachment thing that happened through the Clinton years. I don't know if you may have heard of it.
Of course.
And it actually didn't turn out too well for the Republicans who pursued it. In fact, they managed to lose seats in what should have been a good time for them in a midterm election. And so politically, I love, by the way, you know, the good senator says, talks about impeachment and then says, of course, nobody's talking about impeachment apart from me just now. You know, let them play with it, let them flirt with it. If they want to go ahead and do and let this one run its course as Fast and Furious has, then they're onto a political loser here. They really are.
But to that point, Richard, I mean, isn't that another indication that this is a witch hunt? They've pursued the Attorney General. Now they talk about throwing out impeachment. I mean, there's no grounds for any of this, and yet it continues to be a topic of repeated conversation by many Republicans.
Yeah, and there is... Look, if Democrats had taken this approach that no president from the other party is at all legitimate, then they could have had grounds after 2000. Instead, they worked with President Bush, both before 9/11 and after 9/11. Here you've got a party that has consistently seen this president as being illegitimate, even though his electoral win in 2008 was very significant. So, you know, this is a part of a continuum for them. And if they want to drive their share of the Latino vote even lower than 25% as it is now, then go ahead and do this. Take him on this policy and go for impeachment over it, please.
Right. And, John, to that point, Rush Limbaugh has also expressed some disappointment in Mitt Romney's position on immigration, or what we know of it. Take a listen to this.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, Mitt Romney blew it. Yesterday was a warning, I think. Yesterday was a red flag for the Romney team. The Romney team was not ready for prime time on this illegal immigration, the Arizona decision. If Romney's response yesterday had happened in a debate, it would have been a big win for Obama.
Hard for us to say, but that was a fairly excellent exposition of truth there.
Yes, it was. And as someone who's been attacked by Rush Limbaugh, I can't believe I'm about to say, well, Rush is right. The problem that Mitt Romney has had, and especially on this issue, is that he's not talking in specifics. It's all President Obama is bad, President Obama's policies are wrong, President Obama's policies, I will overturn them, but never says what he will put in their place. On the immigration law, he's mute. No matter what the Supreme Court says tomorrow, Mitt Romney will be mute on what he would do differently, and especially if the Supreme Court rules that the health care law is unconstitutional. The next logical question is, well, then what are you going to do? And Mitt Romney does not have an answer for that, even that.
The vacuous Mitt Romney. Jonathan Capehart and Richard Wolff, thanks so much.